All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people, just like you and just like me. All right, before I get going, Crossing Rubicon, Perfect Storm, you got to check this out. Another amazing melodic rock offering from the gang over at Frontiers Music. Um, I've talked about this band a couple of times, but now that I am actually in possession of it and listening to it and loving it, I would definitely recommend this for fans of Journey, for instance, but other people. Really well written, memorable hooks on this. Great guitar solos, which, again, the guitar solo, is it a lost art? Of course it is. But yeah, these melodic rock bands that get unnoticed all year, every year. This has been happening ever since I started doing this, and it continues to happen. I believe they're from Sweden again. I haven't done a lot of research into the band. I think they've been around for a while, though. So Crossing Rubicon, Perfect Storm, get your copy, or at least stream it, listen to it, download it, whatever you can do. That's I always say try to support the artist if you can. Speaking of artists, there are going to be a ton of artists at this Foo Fighters Taylor Hawkins tribute, both in the UK and in Los Angeles. This weekend coming up in the UK, there is a huge list of well-known people. Omar Hakim is going to be there, one of the great drummers of all time. John Paul Jones, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, Nile Rodgers, Wolfgang Van Halen is going to be there. Wolfgang Van Halen, Roger Taylor, Brian May, Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson. I mean, that's a pretty big list. James Gang, I think, the Joe Walsh thing, I'm pretty sure, unless it's some other James Gang I'm not aware of, but that's kind of a big deal, right? And the concert in Los Angeles at the Kia Forum, it's now the Kia Forum, didn't know that, is also going to feature most of these same people, a few different names on the list, like Nancy Wilson, right? But again, Wolfgang Van Halen's going to be at both concerts. This is embarrassing. Here's why it's embarrassing. Number one, for most guys my age, I'm going to say, and maybe women too, we didn't know who Taylor Hawkins was. Sorry, we didn't know who he was. I shopped that idea around over on Patreon. By the way, you can join Patreon for $1 a month. I want to thank everybody over there for making August a really strong month, but we're into September now, and I just want to put it out there. If you want to do the $1 a month and we can talk back and forth, that's how you do that. But I put it out to patrons. I'm like, hey, people knew who he was in some cases, but 2 tribute concerts, one here in the United States and one over in the UK. And you've got all these co-sponsors, Pluto TV, MTV, CBS, Paramount Plus, Music Cares, Music Support. Holy crap, Batman. And we can't get anything for Eddie Van Halen. I don't even care who's in the Eddie Van Halen tribute, right? Because, it was supposed to be like a Van Halen reunion with Joe Satriani playing guitar or something. And Dave apparently nixed the whole thing or doesn't care. And then he said that Eddie Van Halen was culturally illiterate, right? I wonder if he'd say the same thing about Taylor Hawkins. I don't know Taylor Hawkins. All I know is he was found in a hotel room. The tox report said something like 10 substances. And then, because the thing was happening around that time, people were speculating, at least I was, that maybe something went wrong with that as well. But we'll never know. We'll never know. Maybe 50 years from now, somebody will put out a book and say the truth about it. But, certain companies wanted to shield this information for like, what, 75 years? So you won't know. But this list, right? This list, Phil Collen from Def Leppard, Joan Jett, I mean, LeAnn Rimes, Gene Simmons, Nikki Sixx, Chad Smith. I mean, I'm sorry, Eddie Van Halen should get something, and it should have been coordinated like this. And I'm starting to wonder, was Eddie just not really liked by the music industry? Was he like the insiders? They just didn't like Eddie Van Halen? Kind of was this prodigy who did his own thing. And I think that's why you heard from Roth when he said he was culturally illiterate. Eddie used to do interviews where he would say things like, yeah, I don't really listen to music. And people were like, what? He doesn't listen to music? I mean, why doesn't he listen to music? Something's wrong with him. Yeah, something was so wrong with him. He was one of the great, if not the greatest guitar players ever, reinventing, in some aspects, reinventing how to play guitar, or just doing it so uniquely and in such an original way that, I mean, I just, it's just bizarre. And we've got this drummer, right? Who, again, he had a great smile. He seemed like a nice guy. He had a family. Okay. Well, you know, he also had a history of drug abuse. And at times, he almost, I think, in certain interviews said, yeah, you know, this is what I do. Almost not a celebration of it, but just, and it wasn't like he was just, you know, toking up a doobie, you know. This was some hardcore stuff. And, you know, all of these different substances. And, you know, he's on tour with this band who's about to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I totally disagree with. Sorry, I don't agree with it, because there are so many bands that aren't in there. You know, the Guess Who or the Foo Fighters. You know, again, am I a geezer? Am I a boomer? Kind of. I don't really care. I mean, the catalog itself, and people will say, well, you just don't like them. I don't care for them. They're not my thing. All right. I'm not saying there's not a level of skill there. If I hear about Dave Grohl one more time, you know, blood's going to start coming out of my ears. I'm just tired of hearing about Dave Grohl. There are other really great musicians out there. And, you know, certain people get so much ink and so much press, right? And then others, you know, we have to beg people to talk about certain people. And it's just ridiculous. And the premise here of the video is Eddie Van Halen still with nothing. And you've got his son attending both of these events. To me, if I were Wolfgang Van Halen, I would not attend these events. But again, this is, I guess, the alt-rock scene in some ways being represented. And Wolfgang is in the midst of that. That's his style. I don't even know. I don't know the rationale, because you've got like Brian May and John Paul Jones attending. I'm at a loss for words. This is just really weird. And if I'm Wolfgang, I probably don't attend these events until something happens for my father. And is there another reason? It just seems like there's got to be some other reason why they haven't done a tribute to Ed. And I've heard Eddie Trunk go off on this. Somebody sent me where he just was like, what the bleep, man? I mean, and he was actually referencing the Taylor Hawkins thing. I just, this guy is not Ringo Starr, okay? Thank God we still have Ringo with us. But this guy wasn't Ringo Starr. He wasn't John Bonham, okay? He wasn't Keith Moon. You can go through the list of guys who've left us, a couple of them drummers right there. And this does not rise to that level, but apparently in some circles it does. And I'm just scratching my head every single time I read, okay, here's a tribute to Taylor Hawkins, all right? Okay, it's whatever. Look, folks, I may not understand the current scene, and I get a lot of flack for not understanding who's popular, who's not popular today. And I just, my attention span is waning, right? This is why I listen to other things. This is why I listen to alternative country music, for instance. This is why I listen to melodic rock from Sweden. Nobody else really cares about it, right? I'm for the underdog. This is why I will feature a band like the Prowlers on the show, right? And I get flack for that. Like, how come you don't like this, this, and this? I like what I like. I like what I like. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to talk about it. Because how am I supposed to enthusiastically talk about a band that I don't like? Also, how am I supposed to enthusiastically be just so happy that there are 2 concerts for this guy? Not just 1, but 2. Good, fine, that's great. I mean, you've got sponsors, you've got charities, that's awesome. I think maybe they should do something for, say, drug awareness, drug addiction. That might be appropriate here, right? Eddie Van Halen died of a fairly aggressive cancer. And you could say, well, he brought it on himself because he smoked or he did that thing with a guitar pick and all this. But okay, but he died of cancer. He did not die in a hotel room with 10 different substances in his body. And yes, there is a difference. I know we're not supposed to do any sort of differentiation or have any kind of moral or ethical standard there, but there is a difference. And some people, again, will disagree and say, you're just making a big deal out of nothing. No, I'm actually not. I'm actually not, okay? So in any event, folks, 2 tribute concerts. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff happening if the James Gang is going to be there. That would be something I'd be interested in seeing the highlights from. Big fan of that band. And again, you're starting to see Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson going out there. Neil Peart. Did Neil Peart get this much ink? That's a really good one, right? Right under my nose there. Neil Peart. How come? I mean, I think there was a tribute, right, to Neil Peart, but it didn't reach this level, I don't think. See, Neil Peart was a really unassuming guy. He was a writer. He was a thinker. He was a philosopher, for crying out loud. That, to me, warrants and merits all kinds of tributes. But, instead we've got 2 tributes to a guy who apparently had 10 different substances in his body or something like that. I may be overstating it, may have been like 5, but there were a lot of different things in his bloodstream. In addition to the fact that, something else might have been going on that did more damage than the substances. I don't know. And we will never know because guess what? No one's going to tell the truth about that. They're just not. I speculated a little bit. Other people said you should really run with this. I said, I don't know. I think there was enough in his system with all of these other things. But if those 2 things combined, who knows what kind of reaction you would have to any of it. So, all right, people, one more time on Crossing Rubicon. It's just depressing. It's just depressing that the things that get lifted up versus the things that get forgotten about. Neil Peart, Eddie Van Halen, okay? Just, I don't know. I'm done.